Yeah.
Hello and welcome to post-match reaction to the Lions versus the Crusaders. And the Crusaders did what they did last year in the Super Rugby final, winning away from home 8 points to 14. And I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, a YouTube channel, podcast, Twitter account and website bringing the best in rugby opinion and predictions. And joining me this evening, well, early hours of the morning, for me anyway, is Shane. How are you doing, sir?
Not too bad, Paul. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you so much for staying up to do this with me. I know it's getting a bit late for you as well. Not quite as late as it is for me, but still, even so. So the start started off with mistakes from both sides. We had the catch taken out straight away by the Lions, and it looked like a bit messy as both sides sort of failed to settle early on.
Yeah, both sides were really scrappy tonight. I really thought that they'd played at a really entertaining pace, but when it got down to it, the mistakes inside the 10-metre and 22-metre lines meant that you had to be a bit more patient, and we didn't see that early on. We saw things being very rushed.
We did. That was very true. And early on, we also saw the Lions scrum going very well against the Crusaders. That was one of the things that sort of carried on throughout the game, throughout most of the game, at least definitely the first half, with the power up front there.
Oh, absolutely. I think the Lions forward pack performed pretty well against the Crusaders, actually, and I noticed that they were playing a very forward dominating game, because I think they had 6 forwards on the bench out of their 8 too. So it suggests they want to play a very quick game at the breakdown as well with their forwards.
Yep, and I think the bench came to play a part for both games, but both teams. Perhaps not as big a part as I was expecting at one point, but both teams had to reshuffle their back lines and or their teams. Towards the end there, the Lions had a prop on at 7, for example, which is sort of 6 for us because the South Africans play the other way around. But still, having a prop as a blindside flanker isn't ideal. So there was definitely, both sides had to reshuffle a little bit towards the end there. It took its toll this game.
Yeah, it did, Paul, and I think that when push comes to shove, you can see where the depth comes in from the New Zealand sides, because people can play multiple positions. Where I think the Lions, I noticed that even they didn't have any cover for their scrum half tonight. So certainly that's something for them to think about next week when they go out and play. Positional changes and the bench in that regard as well.
Well, their scrum half managed to make it through the entire game, so that wasn't too bad for them. At least he didn't get injured. Admittedly, the scrum half does run more than any other player on the pitch, which is why you often see them get replaced after about 60-odd minutes, because they are tired by that point. But luckily, that didn't affect them tonight. One of the things, so early on, a bit of a trend this weekend actually. The Crusaders started by trying to kick sticks, but Michael Hunt's radar was off for that first kick.
Yeah, and I actually thought, given the conditions, which really looked excellent, that both sides would actually go for the tries, because it certainly looked like it was a dry weather pitch. But as I say, points are gold, and if you miss it, then you might not have that opportunity later on. I think that hurt the Lions in the end.
True, and I think the Crusaders, the Crusaders got caught napping early on as well. The Lions wanted to play this game at pace. Pretty much every single line out that they could, they took quickly. Every other restart they took as quickly as they could, and a very quick 22 caught the Crusaders napping and got them right up into the opposition half. So they definitely were playing with pace and trying to tire the Crusaders out, I think, for that final sort of 15-20 minutes.
And to a point, to perhaps the first 60-odd minutes, it was 50 odd minutes, sorry, I should say, it was working. And then we saw the Crusaders start to play a patient build up inside the 22. And that probably tired the Lions' big forwards out because they had a lot more defence to do. And it's certainly the old adage, you can play fast for so long before you end up realising that the better side on the night, which obviously was the Crusaders, will play at their own pace, and you've just got to play the game that way.
Well, the Lions just didn't see the ball in that first half. They got the try out wide with some really nice. They were talking. Well, the comments were saying really nice hands, but to me it was pretty simple hands. But it was really good timing. So it was a matter of fix the player and pass, which we don't see nowadays. We see quite a lot of players passing too early, and not fixing the defender, which was one thing we saw well here was that they fixed the defender, passed nicely, created the space out wide, and the Lions got an early try out on the wing. But he missed the kick, which was proved to be kind of crucial coming towards the end of the game, though.
Yeah, no, I thought he would have kicked that actually.
And it was Tambray that scored it, I think it was, but then also went and messed up the restart again by dropping it, which just put his team straight back under pressure.
And you can't afford to do those things, Paul. And time and time again, the Lions looked like they were in good position midfield, and you'd have a drop ball, or they're penalised for not releasing, and etc. And you can't afford to make those sort of mistakes against the Crusaders, and the Crusaders will eventually punish you for your mistakes. And time again, I thought also that the Lions could have taken the 3 points when they were on offer, keep the scoreboard pressure going. They did in the end to get the bonus point, but they were lucky to get that. The effort was certainly good, but they could have done a lot better.
And they were let off the hook on 20 minutes when Bridge went in to score, but the pass to him was forward. One of two forward passes to him that Hunt was throwing. He was throwing some big long passes, but they were just not. Yeah, he got his radar wrong on those.
Yeah, I saw that, and I called forward straight away. I think most people on either side of the Tasman or in South Africa would have called forward as well. It's the intent was good, but throwing those sort of passes too, it was lucky not to be intercepted in a way, but it was,
from that point of view, he got it right, because it didn't get intercepted. But so many times nowadays, those sort of passes you get away with. But as he was passing it along the 5 metre line, there was a nice guide, a nice ruled line on the pitch to show you where the ball went. And yes, that one went forward. So did the other one as well. Bridge just needed to hold his depth a bit more to force Hunt to make it to pass back to him, and I think things would have been okay. So whilst Bridge, I guess, was one of the top meter carriers in this game, he perhaps overran the ball a little bit and very nearly got himself carded towards the end by with a high tackle, with challenging for a ball in the air and collecting the player, which in other times would have got would have been a card, but luckily the player landed on his backside, not on his back. But as I say, Bridge finished the game with 118 meters, more meters than anybody else, but to me didn't really impact the game that much. I think perhaps flattered to deceive those stats.
Yeah, and I was surprised they put sent Goodhue to the bench around about that 60-minute mark. He was playing really well out there, just after he scored a try, actually.
Yeah, that was one of the things. They lost Crotty at half-time, and then they lost Goodhue around about the hour mark, which meant that you'd had Matalele, had come on for Crotty, and then Delaney came on for Goodhue. So you've lost two centres, and you brought on a wing and a ageing, let's be honest, fly half. So I really thought that the Lions would be able to take advantage of that. But Tamanavalu stepped in, had a big game in the centres, and Delaney managed to keep himself out of the way of having to do too much defensive work. I'll just check the stats before to prove that. Yes, made 0 tackles, missed 1. So he managed to keep himself out of the way of having to make too many tackles, and the Lions weren't able to exploit that. But I was thinking that there was definitely a situation where they could have exploited that one. I couldn't actually see it, but I'm guessing Havili stepped in to midfield where he can play, and I would have put Delaney out the back. So that was definitely opportunities there. But as I say, the Lions also having a prop playing flanker had to readjust their side as well. It wasn't all one way traffic, that side of things. Just one thing I just want to run through a few of the stats around at half time. Possession 63% to the Crusaders, territory 71% to the Crusaders, clean breaks 5 for the Lions, 1 for the Crusaders. That defence in the first half by the Lions was pretty impressive.
Absolutely. I think that the Lions in midfield particularly stopped a lot of the opportunities Crotty had in particular when he was running the ball. I noticed he made a couple of mistakes out there, as well as perhaps the loose passes that defensive pressure was putting on. But the Lions, again, as you mentioned, failed to capitalise on the virtually scraps they got as well.
They did. All those clean breaks, to my mind, seemed to be in the first sort of 20 minutes. And then they were playing the second quarter basically without the ball. And when they did get the ball, they just kicked it away. They did 14 kicks to the Crusaders 9. And when you have that little ball, where you're under that much pressure, not only does it take its toll physically, but it takes its toll mentally, because you can't switch off at all. You can't think, okay, the ball's on the other side of the pitch, I can just relax a little bit here. No, as a defender, you've got to be running back, getting in line, creating that defensive line the whole time. And that takes a toll on the players. And I think that's what told towards the end, was that whilst the Lions were trying to play at pace to run the Crusaders off the park, because they spent the whole time defending, it backfired on them in that second half. So Crotty went off, and I've seen a few comments on Twitter saying he's a bit glass now, and there is the same sort of feeling as maybe to around we had. I've gone blank. The best player in the world ever, Carter, went through a period of being crucial to the All Blacks, but getting injured. Crotty's become crucial to the All Blacks, but he seems to be getting injured now. Maybe hopefully we don't see that sort of same trend happening to him as well.
I hope not, Paul. He's a great player, and I thought he was doing well out there before he went off. I hope that he gets his head and injuries right, and has a big second half of the season.
The player that came on for him, though, Matulele, absolute storming game when he came on.
Oh, he was carving up. He put in a very good shift, and the yards he was making. I think, from memory, who was the other one? The other winger for the Crusaders as well.
Bridge.
And
Tamanivalu.
He was on fire as well. They were making meters on those flanks pretty easily, actually, for the Crusaders, and nearly got another try out of it, and just put the foot in touch, unfortunately.
Yes, he did. He just put the foot in touch, which was a shame, because it was a wonderful try that had been created. That was on about 65 minutes, but they scored 2 tries between that. The first one, persistently just working the left side. Lots of push taps and goes. I thought once they got the advantage, they'd try something a little bit different, maybe a bit more adventurous, but no, the Crusaders have their way. They're going to stick to it no matter what happens, and they just pounded and pounded away, and eventually Whitelock went over in the corner. And the other one, Matulele on for Crotty, takes the ball off the line out, steps, marks, bashes up through a couple of tackles, offloads to Goodhue, who you said got that try next to the post as well. So Matulele had a big impact in this game. Not only did he create the Goodhue try, he very nearly created another one as well. I've got him down for 59 metres from my stats, which puts him on third in most metres made by the Crusaders, and he was only on for that second half, which shows you how big an impact he came on and made. It also shows you actually how much, whilst the Crusaders had the ball, they weren't getting over the gain line much. It was just crashing up and repeat, make an error. The Lions get the ball, they kick it away, and then we go back to the same thing for the first pretty much hour of the game.
Well, that's typical Crusaders, Paul. I can assure you from watching them over the years. They'll stick to a task, and you think that they're under pressure, and they will just come back and storm over the top of you with just carting it up phase by phase, patience, and they'll get the job done. And that's what you saw in their 2 tries. They stay calm and in the game, and all to them. They played very, very good rugby under a high pressure situation up there. So and at altitude too.
Absolutely, the fact that they could keep going altitude was good. Conk in the live chat goes, Jack Goodhue was good today. He's been good all season, to be honest, and also last season. He's someone I think a lot of us are expected to see in the All Black camp, if not getting a cap this season at some point, especially if Crotty is out for any length of time. Hopefully both of them are back pretty soon. We then saw a kind of switch, and I guess with Delaney on, with missing both those centres, it's not a surprise. But the Crusaders, I think, decided they would try and shut up shop about quarter of an hour before the end, and started just saying, right, if you're going to score tries against us Lions, you're going to have to do it from deep. And they started to kick the ball and play territory rather than possession, which is why the possession stats even themselves up in the second half. And they just started to make sure that the Lions had to go all the way. And
if I could say so, Paul, having Delaney on, who's very, very experienced, very calm, cool head, and when he was on, he was making some good kicking meters as well, which sort of helped the Crusaders get out of their 22 and really make sure the Lions played from their own half or deep into the Crusaders' half to work for their points. And
they did work for their points. They managed to get 3 more, which got them the losing bonus points, but they couldn't then go on to score the extra try. There was one other turning point during this half, which we should probably talk about, which was the scrum. Whilst the Lions' scrum was on top for a lot of the game, Crockett, who came on at half-time, really helped to shore up the Crusaders' scrum. And the Lions had a penalty in front of the posts. They could have kicked it, as you say, or they could have gone to the line out, but no, they went for the scrum because they'd been dominant there. But 2 big scrums by the... one big scrum by the Crusaders there, got them the penalty on a defensive scrum, got the penalty, and I think that was probably one of the big turning points of the game.
It was, and it was only probably about 10 or 12 minutes from full time from memory. And Wyatt Crockett, there's not much you can say other than he's a brilliant scrummager and a brilliant All Black and a brilliant Crusader. And when you've got experience like that on, and I think he's the most capped Super Rugby player of all time, and that sort of experience and in your pack, you know that the scrum's going to go all right against a pretty tough South African pack, and the penalty there, the heads popped out of the lines, and you knew that the Crusaders were going to get that against the feed. So all credit to Crockett there. And
let's hope he's okay. He had blurred vision towards the end, which is why he had to go off. But let's hope he's all right from that one. Talking about a couple of the players, Kronk says that the Lions winger Madosh Tambi was targeted, and he was definitely targeted at the restarts, whereas a lot of teams will kick to the left side to restart, but clearly the Crusaders recognised that he was a potential liability on the restarts and they kicked right into Madosh Tambi, and so he made 2 mistakes in that first half on restarts. As Kronk says, let's hope he learns and builds on that, because with ball in hand, he was much better than he was under the high ball. 5 runs for 67 meters, and I say he also picked up the try. He always looked good in those between the tram lines on the wing there.
Yeah, he played well, and he deserved his try. I thought, yeah, the restarts he looked a bit uncomfortable with, but he'll get there. And I think if there's a positive light tonight, it's contributions like he made, and I think Yankti's tried, and I know the scrum half tried as hard as he could, and I think Marks was poor.
Oh, you thought Marks was poor? I was going to say I thought Marks had whilst he missed the tackle for the try, when you've got a winger against a hooker, that kind of thing can happen. Marks was one of he made 10 tackles. Mostert, I thought Marks and Mostert were the 2 guys who stood out in that pack. Yeah, Marks with 10 tackles, missing 2. Mostert with 12 tackles. They both put a shift in defensively, topping the tackle counts. And also on the attack, Mostert, I mean, he had that big run in the first half off that quick take in 22, but still he made 62 meters. Marks got through a chunk of work with 7 carries as well. The 2 of them, the most carries and the most tackles. I say both guys who put in a shift for the Lions.
Just thought from a set piece aspect, Marks made a couple of mistakes tonight, which the Crusaders got the midfield ball out of. But
yeah, whilst the stats say the line out went well, apparently they won 12 out of 12 lineouts. That wasn't clean ball. You're right,
yeah.
And it was one of the comments that the coach from the Lions made at half times, that they needed to sort their lineouts out. They needed to get clean ball, and that was hit and miss as to whether they were going to get clean ball from their lineouts. So even though the Crusaders, it says they lost 3 lineouts, so they got 10 out of 13. There wasn't a big difference between the 2 sets. They both struggled a little bit at lineout time. The other players, I think you get time to call out some players now. Any players you want to call out yourself?
I'd like to I'll probably give the shout out to Jack Goodhue. I thought he was dynamic in his 60 minutes out there. And certainly, from my perspective, I'm not sure who's playing scrum half for the Lions.
So the Lions scrum half was Smith this weekend.
I thought he tried his guts out. He was in everything. I can't fault the effort. So there'd be my probably 2 players of the game for me. It's a big call, I know, but I was really, Jack Goodhue, mate, he will play against France. He is not just an All Black in the making. I think he's got a foot in the door. Very impressed. Impressed.
He has been playing very well, but he's also got to get past some, I'd say, Crockett and Sonny Bill Williams, who are the incumbents, and we'll see how that goes. But let's just run through the other players. When we've talked about the backs for the Crusaders, in particular about Tamanovalu, Machieleli, Goodhue, etc. What we haven't talked about is their forwards so much. Matt Todd got in there and made a good bunch of turnovers, made a total mess of the Lions breakdown, especially in that first half, and was one of the reasons why the Lions just couldn't hold on to the ball.
Todd's a superstar, and he's done the apprenticeship, the very good apprenticeship of learning under Richie McCaw, and so one champion replaces another.
We say apprenticeship. He's 30. He's a veteran of the side.
In many ways, I think, and in many respects. But I thought that guy gets through a bunch of work each week, and I certainly think his teammates owe him a beer or 2 for all the turnovers he gets through and all the hard work he does on the pitch. I thought he played pretty well out there.
He did today. 10 tackles, none missed. but one person made more tackles than him, and that was Sam Whitelock, who got through 13 tackles with no misses. He was also a big player for them tonight in that pack, especially as he also got through quite a lot of carrying work as well. 12 carries. He only made 7 meters, so he didn't really go very far, but at least he was putting his body on the line. A couple of players I'm going to call out now, because some of the defending, especially in that first half, was pretty poor. The Crusaders missed a lot of tackles in that first half, and they were below 50% at one point. Alatoa, maybe good propping, but he only made 50% of his tackles, made 3, missed 3. And Hall and Hunt both missed 2 each as well. Hunt had a lot of traffic though, making 7 tackles. So he was actually the top tackler in the backs, but he did still miss a couple. So it's not surprising that quite a bit of traffic went down his line. Oh, sorry, down his channel in that. For the Lions, though, I know there was some chat that Smith hasn't really been playing so back to his best. Obviously, red carded during the final last year, off with the 7s, hasn't really had a break, and we saw it tonight. I think he wasn't up to his best. 6 tackles, but he missed 4 as well. So there's perhaps some players there need to learn how to look after themselves a bit more, have proper off seasons.
Yeah. And I think a lot of South African players have been over with the blitz box, which and playing other in other avenues overseas, which may or may not help them. And I know that there's a lot of loan deals being done with some of the South African sides playing in the Pro 14. So fatigue and managing those sides are going to be, one of those sort of things where you've got to use your depth. And that's where teams like the New Zealand franchises have that in abundance, where the South Africans don't.
Yep, and we've got to say now that the Crusaders have got that win. It helps because they've had a mixed bag at home. They've lost their 2 away games at home, so they really needed their first away win. You've got to say that sets up them very well going forwards, because they've got the Jaguares next weekend from memory, which you'd imagine is a game that they will win. I'm planning to do live post-match analysis, live post-match reaction to that one next weekend. So if you'll want to, it'll be sort of brunch time, Australia, New Zealand time. So yes, join me over brunch for recap of that one. From the Lions' point of view, though, that's now 4 poor performances or 4 poor results on the trot. This performance was much better, but losing to the Blues, beating the Sunwolves only by 2 points, losing to the Jaguares, and now losing to the Crusaders at home as well. There's got to be alarm bells ringing in the Lions camp.
Well, as we discussed on Monday night, Paul, I remember saying that the wheels look like they're starting to fall off a little bit compared to where they were with Ackerman, who was a disciplinarian, and he had the side playing the rugby that he wanted. And I think that they're missing him. They're certainly probably missing a few players that followed Ackerman to, I think it was Gloucester from memory.
Yeah, he's got Ackerman's moved to Gloucester. He took his son with him. But apart from that, I think most of the players have stayed. Mm. But they are missing their captain. I've gone blank, the number 8. I want to say Whitelock, but of course it's not. Whiteley, I think it is.
Warren Whiteley.
Warren Whiteley, that's it. Their number 8.
Here as well.
Who, sorry?
Cronje at halfback, I think.
And Cronje at halfback. So they're missing their 8-9 axis, which is key for them. And Warren is a big leader of that team. So they are missing him, which is a big loss. But yes, you're right. There's definitely question marks over the coaching staff and how they can motivate this team, because this is the slump that they need to get through. It was a much better performance tonight, but the Whiteley, Creel, Soxan, Combrink, Ancron, yep, those are all the Conk. Thank you for that in the live chat. Of all the players are missing, so they are missing key players. But you've got to say the Crusaders are also missing key players in the starting All Blacks props, and Kieran Reid, for example, and Richard Moanga as well. So all teams are missing players, and it's up to the coaches to be able to lift the team from that. And I think that's the big question mark around the Lions for this season.
Yeah, it is. And certainly the Stormers will be kicking themselves for not winning last night, or at least getting a bonus point out of the Bulls game, because that's going to influence some of the results coming forward in the South African Conference if the Lions continue losing games. So it'll be up to the other sides to start picking up their results. It's going to be an interesting conference.
Very good point. And in today, because it is Sunday now. Oh, sorry, it's Monday now. But 8 p.m. New Zealand time, I will be doing a review of the whole weekend. And I think, yes, getting the tables out is probably, now that we're into round 7, is probably about due time. So Herman and I will be having a chat about that. So we'll definitely get the table out, because, as you say, those 3 losses for the Lions have definitely opened up the Africa Conference and can or try and make a prediction as to who will take advantage of that. We'll have to see. Any final points?
No, Paul, I think that'll suit.
I think we've covered them all. Thank you so much for joining me, Shane, at short notice. It's always a pleasure having you on. And I guess the last thing to say is to everyone, enjoy whatever rugby you're watching, folks. Oh, sorry. Shane, how can people chat to you during the week about rugby?
Yep, at ScoolerMate, SCOOLM8 on Twitter. Come talk to me about what you want to talk about.
Cool. And obviously at DrivingMaul is how you can get hold of me, or comments down below. Always up for that as well. Finish off spiel. Don't forget to subscribe, give me the old thumbs up, and my latest video is just there. Cheers. Enjoy whatever rugby you're watching.